Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Timothy.
You're correct. Good job.
One day I'll just respond like a normal human being. This is Screams After Midnight. It's a horror movie podcast. Every week we get together and talk about horror movies. Although it's October, which means it's the Octoberthon, which means we've been putting out episodes every single day, and it is killing us. But we have been working through all month a bunch of horror movies, and we are back again to talk about another new release from this year that we didn't get to see in theaters because of different release dates in different places, and that is Crawl. So we're going to talk about Crawl, which is the alligator movie that came out during the summer, and it's about a woman and her father who are trapped in their house in Florida during a hurricane, but the water that comes in brings with it brings an alligator. So there you go. So we got storms for atmosphere, we got an alligator for the murdering, and we got survival antics throughout. So that is the gist of the movie. So we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers somewhere in the middle, and that is what we're gonna do. So I already described the plot. All I'll add is that the main character, of course, is a swimmer, a competitive swimmer, which is going to be relevant for her swimming from alligators as the movie continues. So, Tim, did you enjoy Crawl?
I did. It was a blast. I don't know. I thought it was a ton of fun. Anyone who knows me knows that probably one of my favorite genres is animals hunting humans. And that's what you get in this movie. It's really simple, but I think they actually do manage to do a lot of interesting things with like the limited space and I guess you gotta say plot that they have. It's very simple, but I think it's effective. It's not perfect. I hate to say it, but like the CGI is not great. I think the first couple of times I saw the gator, I figured, or I thought that this doesn't look great, and it kind of made me a little worried. I think it does get better as the movie goes along, or maybe you just get used to it. But I mean, other than that, though, I don't know. I thought it was pretty fun.
I also enjoyed it. I think Crawl, well, it has a lot of elements that I like in a movie. It has the idea of safe and dangerous places, the idea that they have safe spots that they can't, they're fine in, but they have to like maybe venture into the dangerous parts to like get something or get to an area maybe so they can escape. I think the atmosphere from the storm is really cool. I agree the CG isn't perfect. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's perfect either.
Sure.
I think the first time you see the alligator it's kind of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, and this is the argument for just about anything with CG these days, I suppose, but on the one hand, it does look a bit off. It looks a bit fake, in the way it's moving. But the second, and this is the reason why I'm going to bring this argument in favor for it, is the first shot where you properly see the alligator. The shot they do with it, where the alligator's just kind of walking towards the cameras like sort of tracking back, and it's kind of like this continuous thing as it's walking around, like. You wouldn't be able to do that with practical effects. Like they can only do this shot. They can only achieve this because they can do it with CG. And I think the argument for using CG for certain things like this is that, well, because then we can film it any way we want to, but we're not restricted by what we can do with the practical prop or the puppet or whatever it is we're using. So obviously practical effects often do hold up better. That is true. But I think this is serviceable CG at the very least, if not sometimes better than that. And but for me, the fun of the movie is the survival. The fun of the movie for me is like all the problems that crop up, all the different ways they try to call for help or try to escape or try to do this or that. There are some fun deaths, which I like. A couple of really surprisingly violent ones, which is not that I expected an alligator death to not be violent, but so it has some fun with it. I think I was a little bit worried at the start of the movie that it was going to be a little too serious, that they were taking themselves too seriously. And I do think some of the family drama It has these little flashbacks. I do think, and I do mean little, it's not like a flashback heavy movie. We're talking just a couple of snippets here or there as pivotal moments. I do think those are a bit melodramatic and kind of like, okay, whatever. And not that I need it to be goofy. It doesn't have to, because it is a B movie. This is a B movie through and through.
Definitely,
But it's a solid B movie. It's a B movie where there's fun action, there's fun kills, and it's simple. It gets to the point very quickly. You know, like within 5 minutes of the start of the movie, she's on her way to see her father because hey, he's not. You know, the sister calls her, hey, he's not responding to us. Can you go and check on him or whatever? And like, you know, very quickly we see all the little mistakes. The direction makes a point of having us notice certain things that I think are really fun. One of my favorite little things, actually, obviously one of the elements of the movie is that there's a rising water as the movie's going on because of the hurricane, so the basement's kind of filling up with water, and then eventually the house, blah blah blah. The first time she goes into the old family house where they grew up in, where she thinks she's going to find her dad, the camera emphasizes, and this obviously works from a character perspective because we're trying to set up that this, you know, the parents have divorced, the family's kind of split up, the daughters have moved out, so it focuses on the old age thing, you know, the different heights on the side of the door frame. But what's beautiful about that, I thought, is that when there's water in here later and we see like the water level up here, it almost acts like a measuring stick for the water. And I thought it was a neat little touch. So there's little things like that that really make it work.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I agree with that. Like, it does get cheesy in parts, but for the type of movie that you're watching, it totally works. And like, I was a little worried too, like in the beginning when, they're showing like these swim race scenes, and you know, she's
piano playing,
you know, and like, and her father's like telling her, like, giving these speeches about being an apex predator. And
you're an apex predator. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
And it's like all that stuff. You're like, all right, I know this is obviously going to come back, but then like when it does, it totally works because like of how invested you end up getting, and the type of movie it's being. You know what it reminded me a lot of, which I think
Tremors.
You can't. Well, sure, yeah.
Kill a clown from outer space.
Well, no, not specifically
Batman.
a movie. No, it reminded me more of like a video game. Like this felt
World
very
War II.
survival horror-y to me. Like I'm not talking about like a specific thing. I just mean in general. Like it kind of felt like a survival horror game, and like you were mentioning, where you have these safe spaces, and then there's like a character stalking you. Like specifically like Resident Evil, when you have something like the Tyrant or something, you run into a safe room, and you're good, and then you kind of peek out to make sure he's going down like another direction or something. Like I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, and there is jump scares, but I think the jump scares in this are actually quite good.
Totally.
They didn't feel like bullshit to me. They felt like actual fun. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, as a B movie, we have to acknowledge a couple of things. I'll call it the AI, if you will, of the alligator is like it's the same with like when you watch The Shallows with Blake Lively, right? Where for some reason this animal is determined to like hunt the human no matter what. Like they've got a personal vendetta. Where in actual fact, I'm fairly certain the alligator would get bored and just leave after a while and not give a shit.
Well, I think in the beginning it feels like when they're in that specific location that it is like probably trapped down there with them. But then I mean certain stuff does change and everything throughout the way that by the end of the movie it does feel like okay, this might be a little much, but again you're caught up in the movie and it's works.
No, it's fun. I wouldn't change this for the world, but I think it's a fair thing to point out is that the mentality of the alligator is like, why is he so determined? Why does he care so much? And then the other thing would be like I forgot what I was going to say, Tim. I'm not going to lie. I had a second point, and you had the gall to interject with your own thoughts on what I just said. And because of that, I forgot what the second thing was going to be that I wanted to point out about movies like this.
I mean, it is definitely one of those things where whatever can go wrong will go wrong. But I mean, it helps add to the tension. And again, it creates like a lot of really interesting things that they have to overcome that I wouldn't really have thought of, like given kind of the limited space that they're dealing with. But they managed to get like a lot of mileage out of just a lot of like simple environmental stuff.
Yeah, I think what makes the movie work really well is it's basically a series of set pieces where, okay, so this is what this part's going to be. This part is going to be the mission to get this thing, or this part's going to be the mission to get to this, or call for help this way, or whatever. And it kind of breaks down very nicely into each of these little missions, but obviously each thing like bangs them up more and more, either by getting attacked or by like hurting themselves some other way or whatever. Like, you know, I think it's very quickly paced. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It's like 85 minutes. It gets the job done. It doesn't even hang around at the end for like a little coda scene where they're all happy and stuff. It ends and that's it. Like we're done. So yeah, I will say this: the actress here, who's the lead role. Let me just get her name here. Kaya Scodelario. She, I didn't really know her from anything, although she apparently was in Moon. I am assuming she was on the video call in Moon when she was younger. But what was weird about her is that, and admittedly, well, the photo I've got on IMDb right now doesn't really look like this, but in the movie, she reminded me so much of Deborah Ann Wool from Daredevil and True Blood, and you know she was in Escape Room earlier this year. Like she looked like she was her little sister, like for a lot of this movie. It was especially once her hair was sort of wet and it was sort of slicked back, so it was just kind of her face on its own. I was like, I kept thinking it was Deborah Ann Wool. It was weird. Well, Deborah Ann Wool from 10 years ago showed up, and so I don't know. And then the dad's played by Barry Pepper, he's one of those guys you'll know from a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, he was in Saving Private Ryan, he was in The Green Mile, you know.
Son of a doctor, I believe.
Son of a what?
A doctor.
He's the son of a doctor, or is that a movie?
No, his dad's a doctor.
His dad's a doctor. Why do you know that? That's a weird bit of trivia.
Oh, Dr. Pepper? You never heard of Come on, Pete, you gotta get faster on these things.
That was garbage, Tim.
People are gonna love it. People are gonna like now drink Dr. Pepper when they listen to this show.
Don't make Dr. Pepper the drink of this show. I hate Dr. Pepper.
Oh, Dr. Pepper's great.
That sucks.
You're not drinking the right ones.
Regular Dr. Pepper isn't the right one.
Dr. Pepper's great. What was I thinking of? Oh yeah. So the actors are all great. Like no one's it wasn't really anyone I found like I think I recognized from too much, but I do want to talk about the director for a bit. Are you a fan of this guy?
Alexandre Aja?
Yeah, because he. I forget if we did it on the show, but I do kind of like the Hills Have Eyes remake.
We've never done that in the show. I do not remember liking it. But I do like High Tension or Switchblade Romance, whatever you want to call that movie.
It feels like recently.
Yeah, he did that. He did that Kiefer Sutherland movie called Mirrors in like 2008. I've never seen that, but it looked pretty bad.
Yeah, that was bad. I'm trying to think. Did he do one of the segments on Nightmare Cinema?
No, he did Piranha 3D. Funnily enough.
Okay.
He did. Did he do Horns? Was that the Daniel Radcliffe movie?
Ooh,
it was.
No, it wasn't that good.
I was not into that movie myself. I saw that in theaters. I was not happy.
I like the book. Yeah, I did not enjoy the movie. I don't know. I guess he has had more misses than hits for me, but I don't know. I still kind of like do perk up a little bit when I see he's directing something.
Yeah, he did a movie before this one. That's the last thing he did before this was The Ninth Life of Louis Strax, starring Aaron Paul.
Huh.
I don't even know what that is.
No idea what that is. Yeah.
But yeah, so he was back to more of a horror movie with this one. So he's very hit and miss. I would definitely say out of the stuff I've seen from him, like it's this and High Tension that I like, for sure. It's funny because obviously he made High Tension. It was like Hollywood was all over him. Like, oh, we have to get him over here to do horror movies, and he kind of fizzled out fairly quickly. In terms of stuff he did, but actually no, I don't dislike Piranha 3D, which he also did.
Yeah, and that's another very like very obviously B movie kind of. That definitely ventures more on like the comedic side of it.
Yeah,
But it's fun.
that's a goofy B movie. Whereas this is a B movie that is at least working under the guise of taking itself seriously. Like I say, almost too seriously a little bit with the melodrama, but honestly, the melodrama is not big enough that it matters too much. It's just enough to give the characters something to have a bit of a story about. Like, okay, so she's trying to reconnect her dad because ever since the dad got divorced from the mom, it's been kind of rocky or whatever. Like, all right, so that's kind of the setup there with that stuff. But yeah,
But they do a good job of like you said, they get into it right away. Like there's a nice, you get enough like little character developments and everything, but yeah, it could have gone like been like really boring or something if they spend like 45 minutes on it before they get to the Gators. But yeah, you get enough just to give some context to the characters, and you feel like you kind of get their deal and know what they're about, and then then that's when like all the stuff kicks in, and then once it kicks in, it is a pretty like pretty well paced like. I don't want to necessarily say it's like nonstop because like you mentioned, there are like kind of brief moments of reprise where yeah, you kind of have this like tense thing, and then you get to like a safe area or solve it or kind of get onto like the next step of what you need to do, and then you have a little bit of a calm period to think, and then something else happens. But yeah, I like it though. It works.
yeah. So yeah, we'll get to spoilers then. I don't know if there's much more we can talk about spoiler free, so we'll dive into spoilers, full spoilers for Crawl. So what I liked about the start of the movie is that it did kind of introduce a lot of little things that were kind of going to be key later. The one sort of cop who was like directing traffic, who she knows, like, okay, so we're setting him up for later. We set up the house. We set up, that like she's got her phone on her, sure. The dad doesn't have a phone on him. That's upstairs and it's not charging. And we set up that okay, he's in the house. He's a workman. He's got tools with him. Like there's a lot of little things that feel like it's setting up important details for later, so that they're going to be when they're relevant come later in the film, it's going to it's going to work. So and a lot of the film does take place in the basement. Probably the first half or maybe 2/3. Once they're down there for a while, which is fine because at first there's no water. It's just crawling around. The gator pops out, and the jump scare, when the gator first pops out, you do see like a little bit of movement like behind her at one point, like the not the window, but like the opening, because they're under the house. They're in the kind of the crawl space, to give it its proper phrase. So that works quite well. But the when the gator actually pops out properly from behind the stairs, it's actually a pretty effective little jump scare.
Yeah, it does feel like very like like a nemesis or something from Resident Evil, like just this big bulking creature that just like bursts through in the scene.
Which that's the other thing. So we're in spoilers now. So I mean, we try to kind of avoid it, but there's more than one gator, because there's a big thing early on where she's dropped her phone when she was running from the gator the first time, and she wants to go back out and get it. So she's trying she's sort of keeping an eye on where it is, and she's kind of moving slowly. But the big twist, the big sort of like jump scare here is there's a second one that comes, because I was calling bullshit. I was like, "What? Did it just teleport? Was this Michael Myers bullshit?" Like what? But no, there's just two. I'm like, okay, fair enough. There's two of the bastards.
And I'd heard like I think online when the movie came out, someone had mentioned that there was multiple gators. So I knew it was coming, but it still got me. Like it was because I didn't realize. Like at that point, that's when it was going to happen. So it was still like effective, even though I knew that there were going to be multiple ones.
Yeah, and from there it's like her and her dad are separated at one point, and she's trying to like there's like a hatch that she can maybe get into the house, because if they get up into the house they'll be relatively safe, at least for a while, until the weather gets worse. But there's like stuff on top of the hatch, or she can't get in. So it's the whole thing. And like I think one of the other things I like about the setup of the movie is just like it emphasizes the storm quite well. There's a lot of like traffic lights kind of like swaying in the strong winds and the rain. If anything, the only complaint I'd have with the atmosphere of the storm is that I feel like when they're in the basement, like you don't really hear much of it, and I feel like you still hear a lot of it down there.
Yeah.
Because they're saying it's a Category 5 hurricane that's coming in. Yeah. Which, by the way, like, why do people live in Florida? Like, there's gators everywhere. Just don't do it. No point. Just settle somewhere else. It's fine.
It does kind of seem like a miserable place. Like, I mean, it's nice that you don't have to deal with winter, but like also like the summer sounds like excruciating. And then, I think anywhere you find a gator is not going to be that pleasant. Although, I'm starting to get like a little nervous because have you ever heard of that Nextdoor app?
No.
Do you know what that is? So I mean, it's a thing like some people are getting into here, where basically it's an app for where you can post stuff specifically about your neighborhood. So like you sign up and you have your address or whatever, and then people can post like, hey, just to let you know, I saw like a suspicious person walking down the street, or ran into like
so it's like an app for neighborhood watch, basically.
Basically, yeah. But my wife's really gotten into it, and she keeps showing me stuff, and like for our new house, for when we moved there, and she's been seeing like a lot of people like reporting like bears and like bobcats and coyotes and stuff, and I was like, I thought we were moving in the suburbs, but it's kind of it's a little scary. I would love to see some animals like that from the safety of inside my house, but be nervous when I take my dogs out.
Because your dogs might even pick a fight. Like, it's back away slowly. The dog's like, no, let's fight the bear. Like, no.
And my dogs are God bless them. They're so nice. They just want to play with everyone, even like when they go to other dogs that are clearly like trying to kill them. They're like, oh, should I go play with them? So I don't even want to like mess with them seeing a bear or something.
Yeah. That's I have seen videos online of cats like scaring off bears, which is kind of funny.
And I this would be a nice transition too. I do want to say I was very relieved that the good dog in this movie lives. I
was concerned, yes, that the dog may not make it to the end. Yes.
I feel like if you can get halfway through, I think it's pretty safe, because usually if they're there, it's going to be kind of like the first kill to kind of establish this thing or whatever. So I was a little nervous, but then about halfway through when he's still around, I'm like, okay, good. He's I think this good boy's going to make it.
I think it was a good girl, actually. I seem to recall it being a girl dog.
Yeah, I think her name was Sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a girl. But still, very good dog.
I want to say on alligators, I feel like there is something especially vicious about alligators as an animal. Like, obviously we get like shark movies and stuff, but I don't find sharks that especially vicious. Like, I feel like alligators, there's something so menacing looking about them, and like how strong their jaws are for chomping on things. They're a good villain.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I think it does kind of go back to like our like mammal kind of brain, where you are kind of taught to like fear like like snakes and like alligators and stuff that would eat mammals like us, and I think they are like one of those animals that aren't afraid to like go up and eat a person, whereas sharks are very scary, but if they eat you, it is probably going to be on accident. Well, they probably won't even eat you. They'll take a bite out of you and swim away. Versus an alligator will probably make a meal out of you. Yeah. And they also they can get like really big too. I think they're one of those animals that, if they are left alone, they do end up getting quite large. Sometimes when I'm bored late at night, I just want to look up random videos. I'll type giant and then whatever animal, and if you do that with alligator stuff, you get some really big ones. I think there's this one on a golf course in Florida that's just huge. It looks like something out of Jurassic Park. It's absolutely insane.
Why would you play golf in that golf course after hearing about this? No.
Yeah, it's not good.
I live in a place where there's no dangerous animals. I can't imagine putting up with this shit. What no part of it? At one point, there's like a sign you see that's like floating underwater that's obviously been broken off, saying "danger alligators" like around, and I'm like, why would you live anywhere near this? Why would you buy a house next to it, near a sign within like a 10-mile radius of a sign that says "danger alligators" near here? Madness.
I don't know.
Do it. Don't live in Florida, people. Don't do it. So many hurricanes, alligators, snakes. It's just not worth it. Humid. No.
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 It is always nice too. Like I feel like again, like mixing things up. Like this isn't a location where you see like a ton of horror movies. Like it's always nice to see something a little different, especially like a horror movie specifically set during this kind of like specific weather.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the enemy of the movie plus the weather, it's like Florida's just the place to set it, right? Unless you're setting it somewhere maybe like South America or something like that, but it makes sense. I agree. It's nice to have a different setting. You don't necessarily get a lot of Florida set movies in general. Never mind horror films. So sure, why not? Although one day we'll do a superhero movie called Florida Man, based on all the news headlines that start with the phrase "Florida Man does this stupid thing."
Well, I think Florida before was where they had those like reports of like zombies, like where they talk about like people taking bath salts and like eating other people or something. I want to say that was happening in Florida.
Sounds like Florida.
A good horror movie.
So no, the gators are fun. There's some cool kills. Obviously, once they're down there for a while, the water's starting to come in, and they're, the dad, like, because the dad's unconscious when she first finds him because he's been attacked already. And I kind of like, because the Gators' first appearance actually came earlier than I thought it would. I didn't expect. I thought she'd actually get back upstairs and do some other stuff and come back down before the Gator showed up. I was genuinely surprised when it popped out when she was going back towards the stairs. But there's obviously some fodder for some deaths. There's like random looters at one point who are like, they're at the gas station across the street and they're like stealing the ATM machine. They've got a little boat. And I'm like, okay. And as soon as she saw them through the little grate, and she's trying to like signal them, and she's kind of using her phone to like light up and like get the guy's attention. But I was like, okay, these guys are just fodder. This is just fodder. But I actually really liked the first death here, just because it was kind of comical almost, where the one guy who's kind of paying attention and he's like sort of thinking, is that someone over there? And he's walked out into the water, and it's just, we're paying attention to him, and he's walked out quite a bit from the boat, and behind him you just see an alligator like jump onto the boat and just like grab like whoever's behind him, and it's kind of comical because it's just kind of in the background. I really like that.
Yeah. And is that when you're seeing it like from like around her point of view, like so it's kind of like far back in the distance, or is that one of the other people?
No, it's far back. I don't know if it's quite back at her POV. I think it's like, but it's looking at the guy who's like sort of looking at her, and you just see it in the background, just the alligator like jumping up and like, so it's kind of, you don't really hear it, you just sort of like see it behind him.
Yeah. And I like the too, kind of playing with like expectations, because I feel like usually with aquatic horror, you usually kind of feel like, all right, if you're in the boat, you're safe. But I like that wasn't the case in this. It's like, no, if you're in the boat, they're still gonna get you.
Yeah, they're still gonna jump up. I like that. I liked a little bit later when the cop shows up, the guy she knows that her sister used to date, he shows up because I like this because they set up the idea, a couple of things. One of the things I thought was going to happen is that they set up that her sister knew where she was going because she texted her sister before she went, I'm going to the old house. So I thought like the rescue would eventually come from that her sister knew they were there. But they did set up at the start as well that this cop knew she was going because she was told not to go and she kind of did it anyway. And he saw that, so they specifically come out to the house to check on them because they know they're there. So the main cop sort of gets off and is in the house, and he's kind of like looking for them, and he eventually hears them. While this is happening, though, the best death in the movie by far, it's like 4 gators attack the second cop, and one gator bites off his head, but he does it in this really kind of like, he sort of twists it as he's biting it, and it's a really nice visual. It was a really cool kill.
Yeah. They do, like, I think they have like a thing, what was that called, like the death roll or something, where they kind of like, they grab you and like they spin you around, and it looks really cool, when they do it in this movie. And yeah, that one, it was just like a huge like feast. It was like forget like, yeah, 2 gators. There's like, it ends up being like a lot more, like once you actually get out into,
Yeah, there's even
storm.
the small gators, because after this and the water's rising really high and it feels like all hope is lost, because the main cop gets killed. He's just sort of standing at the entrance to the basement, and the gator just kind of jumps up and like grabs him, and and obviously there's a lot of like she tries to save him and she ends up just having to like retreat, and she's swimming from the gator as quick as she can, and she does get her leg bit at one point. Then she decides to like do the dangerous thing and swim out through the drain, the big drain, which is how they get in here in the first place.
Yeah, this was probably my favorite scene. Like, I just love the like visual, because it just feels like so claustrophobic. And then when she gets towards the end and you just see the really big gator like swim by, again, it kind of feels like a cutscene you would see like in a like horror game where you think you're safe, and then you get to a point that like you see the big menacing creature up ahead and you have to stop.
Are you telling me this entire movie is based on Resident Evil 2 when the big alligator jumps out?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them.
Hey, if that's the case, then I'm disappointed they didn't end the scene where like she should have killed one, like threw like a grenade into its mouth and going, take that, you overgrown son of a bitch.
That definitely would have been great. Although I mean, I guess it's not like super far off when she's just like has the gun and the gator like grabs her hand and she just fires into it.
It's after she swam through to this bit and she finds like a nest. It seems like there's like at least a couple of alligators have been nesting here, so there's like some eggs. So we actually get a couple of small ones. There's like a little baby tiny one that's just to hatch, but the one she kills is like I'll call it a teenager for lack of a better term. It's kind of like mid, but it's like much smaller than the big ones, but it's like big enough that it's dangerous, and it like actually bites her arm because she gets the gun. Again, this is what I like about the setting of things around the basement and the objects that have introduced. This is so the dead cop's floating and she like sees him and is like, hey, he's got a gun, and she takes a gun. So okay, now she has a weapon, whoever useful that may be. And I'm fairly certain the back of an alligator is bulletproof. It wouldn't go through that.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, probably.
Or at the very least, it's very tough, so it wouldn't.
Yeah, it might not like completely kill it off.
Yeah. And of course she thinks she sees something, she's looking around, and it comes up and, as you say, bites her arm, and her arm's completely in the alligator's mouth, and she just starts firing the gun while it's in his mouth until it dies. And I was like, okay, that was a neat little set piece. I like that. So no, like, but again, so there's other things. There's like a small radio playing in the basement, and every so often like the red alert plays on it, and eventually it goes because the water gets to it. But for the first like 30-40 minutes of the movie, it's like constantly there, kind of reminding you that something's going on. The dad's got a tool belt. In fact, the dad actually kind of traps / kills one because he's got like a, what do we call it, like a jack holding up some beams, and he actually lures the alligator in and like kicks the jack so all the beams and some of the rock all fall on it.
Yeah.
And then he hits it over the head with a brick repeatedly, which must have felt satisfying at that point, I have to imagine.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So, no, but she does get out, and she gets up, and she's sort of like swimming around, dodging the alligators, gets into the house. And at this point, her dad's almost drowning to death because the water's like hitting the ceiling of the crawl space, and she just like she hears him banging, and she gets some tools and starts like chipping away at the wood and lifting up the floorboards and pulls them out. But I mean, it's such a traditional B movie that we get the CPR, like he's dead, but she just pounds on his chest enough that he eventually wakes up. Like we get that, which is fun, and. So at this point, it's like, okay, let's get to the car, and I'm like, really, you think you can drive the car at this point? Like, you can barely see the top of it in the water, and they're at the door, and he's like, hey, that boat over there at the gas station from the looters, like, that's our one way out of here. We have to get over there. And she's like, are you crazy? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I can't do this. And he's like, you're a swimmer. You're an apex predator. You could do this. But actually, that's plan B, because he was saying that earlier when she was like in the basement. Can you get to this, A to B or whatever? But he's like, hey, because I didn't quite catch all the rules with alligators, although I appreciate that they were putting some rules in, is that they hunt via splashing, and because the rain's covering, obviously creating a lot of splashing right now because it's just storming, like, if we walk slowly, no swimming, just walk calmly, we should not be detected. We should be able to get across to the boat without. And I'm like, okay, that makes for a tense scene. Again, it's a nice little set piece, nice and tense as they're walking across and they're trying not to be like noticed by the alligators. And at one or two points, the alligators swim quite close, and it's quite a neat little beat. Again, reminds me of Resident Evil 5 specifically. There's a whole section of that game where you're walking through the swamp water, and you're dodging the alligators. But of course, it does the thing where they're halfway across and the rain stops because they're under the eye of the storm. And it's like, oh shit, this is funny. And that's when he's like, okay, you're a swimmer. Swim, swim, Haley, swim. Yeah. You're an apex predator. And she bolts it for the boat, and she gets there, and just dodges the alligator and drives the boat back around. And worth mentioning, the dad's carrying the dog at this point, like the whole way across. But of course, once they're in the boat, the big alarm goes off. It's because the dam broke. Oh shit. So this water comes flooding in, floods in the house, and this is where all the posters from the movie come from, where she's she's on the kitchen counter and you can see like the alligator in the either the kitchen or the bathroom later. And we get a lot of like sneaking around the house trying to get higher in the house. This is where the dad gets his arm ripped off, or I say bit off is maybe a better argument. But what I love about it is it gets like snapped back first and then ripped out. Yeah, really brutal. And then,
so I might have missed this, but do they? So basically, like the boat gets like thrown back into the house. Is it their same house, or were they get thrown into just like a random house?
It's their house, because there's a line. Because earlier on, she said we used to have to get up high, get up to the second floor of the house. And he says, no, when the dam breaks, this whole thing will probably come down. And there's a line in this last sort of chunk of the movie where she says, hey, house is still standing. He's like, yeah, I guess it is. Oh, it's a good one. Like, there's a little line where he thought it was going to collapse when the dam broke, but he was surprised that it stayed up. So.
Yeah. And then I did like the scene. I knew it was coming because I'd seen it in the trailer. But I do like the scene where like she traps one in the shower. Just like a nice little bit of like running around and then jumping over. It just looked cool.
Now, Joe, I like about the movie a lot actually, and is that it really makes a good use of its geography, where like we say, it sets up the safe places, the dangerous places. But what I like is that once it gets up into the house, we don't know the house as well as we do the basement, but it's a house. We understand, a hallway to a bathroom, to a bedroom. All of these sneaking around and like trying to get past the alligators who are in this really confined space was really claustrophobic and really worked. And seeing that overhead shot when she's in the bathroom and she's in the shower, and you can just see this gator outside the shower sort of swimming in a circle because there's no room for it. Like it's just that. So she does this thing where she opens the door and then climbs up and jumps over and then traps it. So again, neat little scene.
I just I do think it is like really impressive like how much they managed to get out of a very simple premise that but they managed to use so many like like neat little tricks with it and find like engaging ways to use the environment that I'm like, as that I think like a lot of people were really surprised at how well this turned out, because it on paper it does sound like a cheesy kind of movie, but
this comes back to how I think you make B movies with premises like this. Because I was thinking of this when I was watching Duel earlier this year for the first time. Spielberg movie with a truck.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen it?
I actually have not. I've always wanted to, but
it's a fun movie. It's it's just this guy in a car, and he kind of like pisses off a truck driver, and the truck kind of stalks him throughout the movie, right? But what I love about that, and this I think as well, and other movies with premises where the premise is really simple. It's a truck is chasing this guy in a car across the highway. Across the US. This movie, it's an alligator or multiple gators are in a house with two people who are trapped in a swamp during a hurricane. I think the way these movies work is they're set piece movies, and I think the way that you do them is you sit down after you have the idea and say, okay, well, what can we do with this premise? What are all the things? Like, don't worry about the plot, don't worry about how it all connects together. what's the different things we can do with this premise? What can we do with an alligator in a kitchen? What can we do with an alligator in a bathroom? What can we do with an alligator in a basement and a pipe? What can we do with the alligator just in the road, just like covered, just flooded? Like, think about all the different things we can do, all the set pieces we can have, and then just find a way to string them together. Because ultimately, this is a movie where it lives and dies on the strength of just each chunk being engaging, intense, and fun. It doesn't really matter. It's not a character movie where there's a big arc. Yeah, there's a little bit of them bonding again because they've had a bit of a shitty relationship recently, and that's just enough to make them feel like people. But it's not about that. It's a premise movie, and with a premise movie, okay, what can we do with that premise? And for me, that's where the fun comes. It's like, okay, how can we use this? And I mean, a sequel would probably be bad, but you could probably do, like, I think the smart thing for a sequel would be to do a completely different animal.
Yeah.
Crawl to, do, like, I don't know.
Like, I don't know, snakes or something.
Maybe.
I mean, obviously snake movies have been done before, but yeah, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure alligator movies have been done before.
True. But yeah, it's such a specific like turn of events that causes everything that yeah, it seems like it'd be hard to do a sequel, but if they have a good idea,
it couldn't be the same characters. It'd have to be just different characters in a different situation, unless they do some sort of weird thing where like you go nuts with it and it's like okay, so there's been like a storm or something, there's alligators, and there's someone trapped. It's the president's daughter, right? And it's like, who can we call? And it's like, hey, we heard about this woman who survives. so they call her in as an expert, and she ends up like choosing to go into the water to save someone.
Or what if they have such a bad experience they have to get as far away from Florida as possible, so you go somewhere very cold and snowy,
as a polar bear outside.
Yeah. They're in one of the worst blizzards imaginable. Like,
that's what you do. You do a blizzard movie. Yeah, do something in the blizzard, do snow, and do it with a polar bear or something. I don't know. But yeah, so the end of the movie is basically, again, there's some more fun stuff where the big alligator like comes flying through the window. It's just again, this is probably the most video game moment of the whole thing. It felt like it cut to a cutscene from a game, and not like a bad CG way. Although you could, if I looked at it again, I'd probably spot some flaws. But it sort of comes through the window, and again, this is where it's like, no, it's hunting her. Like, this thing is pissed at her, and I almost thought that like, were they trying to do the thing where, because it killed one of the younger ones, like she killed one of the the sort of adolescent gators that now mummy's pissed, like, which is a little bit cheesy and cliche. Like, a lot of these movies will do that kind of thing, but they never actually leaned on it. Like, it's there if you want to believe that, but it's never brought up or matters.
Yeah. I think it maybe it'd be a little like eye rolly if they called attention to it. Like if she was like, oh, so you're the mama, huh? Well, guess what? I killed your son. Like, if they started going that road, they'd be like, all right, come on. But yeah,
she asked this because the water's so high now, it's up in the upper floor. So she actually ends up swimming out, and she's trying to like hold on to the drain pipe, and then eventually the dad gets up to the roof via the attic, and he like pulls her up, and then they have a flare, the helicopter comes, and it's like, it's the end. Other little things I like, though, I like just little proactive things. Like, at one point in the basement, there's not a lot of water yet, but like, they're safe behind a certain group of pipes because the pipes kind of block the alligators from getting in. Like, at one point there's like a gap below one of the pipes before she's going to go, and she makes this little smart idea. She gets like this little, like, this box cage thing, and like just rams it under the pipe,
right,
just to block it off a little bit more, like make it more difficult for the alligators. I like that. And then obviously there's a lot of things where there's like a radio or a cell phone like out in the danger no man's land, and she has to try and get to it. And
I kept waiting for, like, there was a scene where like she's crawling through like these wires, and I really thought there was going to be an electrocution scene where like she like zaps an alligator. So that was a little disappointing, but they still managed to do a lot of other fun things. And you kind of mentioned it earlier, but I like that the movie just kind of like ends, like yeah, you don't need some like big touching thing where you show them like at a new house or something like.
We're a happy family now.
Yeah. Yeah, you just kind of see like, yeah, a helicopter like flying overhead, and you kind of just assume like, okay, yeah, they'll probably get the attention of that helicopter and survive.
I mean, I think you see enough to see that the helicopter's seen them just because it's coming right at them, and she's holding the flare. But yeah, I mean that's basically it. That's basically the movie. I think it's solid. I think it stays focused. It's definitely got some tropes in it for sure. It's not trying to pretend to be anything it isn't. Maybe it does get a little bit melodramatic with the small little flashback scenes to like when she's a daughter, or she's always a daughter. You know what I mean? When she's a little kid, and dad's like her coach, for swimming. But it's not too much. Like I was worried a little bit at the start that was going to bog it down, but it never really did. And it stayed fun. And yeah, I watched this lying in bed, and that was the perfect place for
it. Yeah. I was talking to a friend earlier this week, and I was telling him about this new comic book I'm working on, which is it does involve the main character is an animal who's hunting these humans and stuff, and my friend was like, I noticed that's a theme in your work. What's the deal with that? And hey, the answer is simple. I love animals. I don't like humans, so I like any movie that's about animals hunting humans. And admittedly, you can be like, well, I mean, they do kill the gators, so it's like, yeah, but still, I like that premise, what goes into that.
Well, the gators had it coming.
Sure, yeah. And they do kill quite a few people before them, so they still get get their due. But no, it's a like very solid, fun movie. I think you know what you're getting into if when you hear the premise. Like if you hear the premise and think that sounds cool, you'll probably enjoy it. Like if you don't, I don't know if it win you over, but I mean, I think it is definitely surprisingly good for what you would normally think of as being maybe not the best kind of movie.
Yeah, no, gators are cool. I mean, well, because I hate snakes, and snakes creep me out. The gators don't creep me out. I'm scared of gators because they're huge and monstrous and will eat me. But it's not an irrational fear. I don't really care otherwise. Whereas snakes just creep me out in principle.
And like I think they do a really good job of making them feel very menacing, and
there's a few moments where like you'll get a close up of their eye, and they'll hear something, they'll just turn their head and they start swimming, and it's like, okay, all right.
Like there are times when I feel like it almost becomes like more than an animal, like where it's like, oh, this is like a
apex predator.
Like horror. Yes, exactly. But no, like just like certain scenes where I don't know, it feels like more like a movie monster versus like a creature you'd find in the wild.
Yeah, we haven't done a lot of like monster, alligators, sharks. Like we haven't done a lot of that stuff. It's been a long time. I remember enjoying 1980s alligator. It's a giant alligator in the New York sewers. I remember enjoying that. Okay. But
yeah, I don't think I've actually seen that. I mean, one revelation I came to is I do think I like gator movies more than crocodile movies, because
does it matter? Is that just a coincidence, or is it because there's something better about gators?
Well, no, I just think in the movies I watch, the ones that are alligators tend to be better.
Was Lake Placid a gator? Yeah.
I think it was. I'm pretty sure. Correct us if we're wrong, but I think that was a gator, and that's like a fun movie for what it is.
And obviously, that's an oversized, not real thing.
But I'd mentioned, I don't know if this is coming out before the news, but when we're talking about what you watched, after I watched this, I did a double feature of Killer Crocodile 1 and 2, and they're very fun, cheesy movies, but definitely not as good as this.
Yeah, no, this is good. I mean, I've not seen a lot of gator movies, and I don't really remember the ones I have seen. And we'll have to do like a gator month at some point, and just do like.
I think we might have done one before, because isn't that why we did Lake Placid? I thought that was a vote winner.
Well, that was a vote. I mean, like we'll just do like gator and crocodile movies all month. Like it's just like, hey, let's just do a ton of these. But no,
but they do make like good. Like villains, because they are very like dangerous looking, and Yeah, they.
They're the closest thing we have to dinosaurs because they look kind of dinosaur-esque, you know.
Yeah.
And they can be big, so they have kind of that T-Rex. Well, not T-Rex, maybe that's not real, but you know, like
it's close. It's like a similar feeling you get to seeing something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially just knowing like, oh, this is a creature that could just like snap my head off.
And not only that, they have this natural thing where they hide underwater and can pop out at you, so they're good for horror in that sense.
In general, like I really do like aquatic horror, and especially like all the scenes of like especially when they're underwater and you see them swimming. I think that was actually a good time when the CGI really worked, like the underwater stuff.
Yeah, they were better in water for sure. I think it was when they were up and walking around just on the ground early on where they looked a bit rougher. Although, like again, like they showed it off in ways that you couldn't have done like 20 years ago, and I think.
Yeah.
You know, the benefit of doing like a Hollywood movie, you know, alligator movie in 2019 that this is because, hey, we've come a long way since those practical effects of the 80s and stuff. Let's do one that's a bit more like we can show it, we can just do it. You know, warts and all. And sometimes I'll lament that didn't work. You know, maybe you shouldn't do that. But we all know what an alligator is. It's not like the xenomorph alien where we're hiding it because it's mysterious. Like the alligators aren't mysterious. We know what an alligator is. So let's do one where we can just show it off properly and have fun with that. And yeah. And but side note, I learned this week that in Avengers Endgame, this is a point about CG and how far we've come with CG. Even though that movie has a lot of CG, like the big fight stuff at the end, it feels a bit cheaper than it should, given how big the movie is. Do you know that those white suits they wore to go back in time in that movie were all CG?
Oh, really?
They never wore those suits on set. They didn't exist.
Jesus. That's weird.
But you never noticed. You never thought about it. It's just they look fine the entire time.
Interesting.
I hate the reason for it because the reason is like, oh, we didn't want to decide what they look like yet, so we thought we'll just do it in post. Like, I hate that. Just do it.
Yeah. I also heard a lot of stuff where a lot of the things they film, like the actors didn't even know exactly like who they're fighting and stuff. Like they would just tell them like, oh, do this or whatever, and then like, oh, they would hide parts of the scripts and stuff and be like, oh yeah, we can't tell you exactly who you're running towards or who you're gonna fight right now because that would be a spoiler. But it's like, I don't know, it just seems like such a dumb way to make a movie. It's like you can't even tell your actors what they're doing. That's
Mark Ruffalo's fault because he almost spoiled 5 of the movies in a row. So they started being very tight-lipped about everything. So anyway, Crawl. We have to rate Crawl. Tim, what are you rating Crawl out of 10?
I think I was gonna go a smidge lower, but I mean, as we're talking about it, I'm just remembering oh yeah, that scene, because I watched this 3-4 days ago at this point. So it's obviously recently, but it's not like it was yesterday, fresh in my mind. But as I'm thinking about it, no, that was pretty cool. Oh yeah, that was cool too. And yeah, they managed to make do with a lot of stuff. So I think I'm gonna give it a straight 8. I was thinking 7.5 at first, but I was like, as we're talking about, I'm remembering more and more how much I like it. So I'll go up just a smidge. But again, it's not the deepest movie. I guess pun intended a little bit, but it works well for what it's trying to do, and I feel like it's embracing the fact that it's kind of a cheesy B movie, but it does it so well and it really invests you in it. It's I'm into the movie from start to finish pretty much. So
yeah, you couldn't really ask for a better alligator trapped in a house movie, really, if you wanted one. So honestly, I was going to do the same. I was going to go 7.5 because I felt like going 8 was maybe too high, but and I can't really go any higher than 8 either because ultimately there's only so far you can go with this premise, but
right,
this is probably as good as we can get with this premise, and it's really solid throughout. I had a fun time. I do want to watch it again at some point. This feels like a really easy one to throw on every so often and just enjoy. So I'm going to agree with the 8.
Yeah.
There you go. But a good movie.
Definitely Yeah, definitely very surprising. Like I feel like when it came out, a lot of people are saying like, "Holy shit! Like this is actually good." And yeah, I definitely, if at the beginning of the year we're looking at all the new horror movies that are coming out this year, I would have been excited to see this, but I probably wouldn't have put it up as being like, "Oh, that's going to be one of the best ones we watched this year."
Yeah, I know, insane. But we need them though, because I am very worried about our top 10 of the year, Tim. I'm not convinced we have enough to make a 10. So
10's gonna be tough. We can probably do like a top 5 of the year, and then a top 5 mediocre movies, maybe.
I don't know. I'm hoping we can squeeze in a few more 2019 movies before it's time to make that list, and then because we're going to do it a little bit later, because we're going to wait until after I can see the Lighthouse. So we got a little bit of time. We're doing that because we're doing our top 50 of the decade first at the end of the year, which I'm looking forward to doing. Right. Actually, I'm looking forward to that list. Celebrating the last 10 years of horror, that'll be fun. That'll be kind of our post-Christmas sort of treat, because we'll do Christmas movies obviously in the build up to Christmas, and then New Year's. I mean, we may have a New Year's movie as well that we've done in the last couple of years, if we can think of another one, but I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's more New Year's movies.
Sure.
we already did New Year's Evil and Terror Train. I don't know what else there is. But yeah, so 8 out of 10 for me. So no, Crawl's pretty good. It's a fun time. I mean, don't go in thinking it's going to be like your new favorite, Halloween or It Follows or something like that. But go on with reasonable expectations, and I think if you like survival movies, that this is a good fun time. A couple of cool kills. I would like some more kills, but honestly, like this is a movie that isn't really about the kill count. It's not about like having tons and tons of victims. It's about the ingenuity of trying to survive and how to get out of the situation.
Movie.
Yeah. So, but if they do make a sequel, I'm all for like just a higher body count for the fun of it. So this has been Crawl on Screams After Midnight. This has been during the October-thon, where we're pumping out episodes every single day for the month. Hopefully you've been having fun with that. If you want to show your support for everything we do, you can like and subscribe, and of course ding the bell to make sure you get the notifications. You can rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from. 5 stars helps out a lot. It means that those podcast services share us out a little bit more and recommend us if people listen to other horror shows, and we grow our audience, which is good for everyone involved. Good for us, good for you, because it means we'll keep doing this longer, and good for us because we have more listeners, and then good for you because you can just be happy for us, and then it's good for us because we may get more patrons over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, which is of course the other way you can support us financially, by going over there and supporting us for as little as $1 per month, and for that $1 you get a bonus exclusive episode every single month. Of course, for October, you get 4 exclusive episodes, but of course, you get the entire back catalogue whenever you sign up, and you get a new one every month. But at the end of this month, there'll be about 11, I think, on there. So go and have a look and see if you're interested in that. The higher tiers, $5, you get to vote every month, you get some early access stuff, and then, of course, you get like credits at the higher tiers and stuff like that. So go and have a look and see if you're interested. And that's about it. Check out other content from MailFuzz TV. There's a sci-fi movie podcast called The Atomic Cinema Experiment, shortened to the ACE, that I do with Tara. Very similar to this. Every week we talk about a sci-fi movie. Pretty straightforward. But there you go. So that is us. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching horror movies, guys, and we will see you next time.